They established two in 1970, 22nd of April, dedicated to bringing the environment to the forefront. Each year, Earth Day networks to bring together communities around the world in a huge campaign to tackle modern day environmental problems in effort to continue the Earth Day tradition. So this is don't be surprised why world leaders, come around this summits about the earth, the climate, and Greta, that little girl that came about, talking and she got that stardom and everybody seems like, you know what, this is actually true. If a little girl can actually talk about the importance of preserving and protecting the earth, then we really need to take a second look. Well, some time back, the ex-president of the US pulled out of the Paris summit. God knows why. But Joe Biden, on the other hand, the current president of the United States, actually having a summit on climate and other world leaders as well. So this is how important matters are. Well, let's bring it back to Africa and start discussion. In the studio with me today is my friend, a very good friend for that matter, who is an environmental champion, I would say, climate change advocate, also assistant horticulture officer, Department of Parks and Gardens at the office of the president. He is seated with me today. Chairman.
Kezi.
That's a nickname. I chanced upon that movie a couple of days back. I'm like, memories, man.
Wow.
Wow. How are you doing?
By God's grace.
Nice.
Well.
How's the family?
Oh, we're doing well.
And how's work?
Yes,
I know you're always connected to the environment,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Now let's get straight. Today is our day, but you are in the center of issues surrounding environment. Earth and what have you, climate and everything. But the question is, we keep on seeing these problems every time, yearly, daily. Name it. When we talk about environmental challenges, who are we blaming? Is it the policies that are not right from the government, or is it as a result of human behavior, or both?
Yeah, thank you for this question. At the beginning of the program, you were playing Michael Jackson's song.
Earth song.
It kept playing in my mind, and I heard something like, what have we done to the world?
Absolutely.
But I want to reframe it to say, what have we done to ourselves?
Right.
Because anything you do to the environment is not just about the environment. It's not an island. The environment is habited by humans.
Right.
So anything we do to the environment bounces back to us as human beings. So we should be cautious about that. So it's not about what we are doing to the world.
It's about what we're doing to ourselves. Right.
So to get to that point of where you're asking whether it's an issue of policy or human being, it's both. And however, when you look at policies, there are policies that governs the environment. But the challenge here, I always tell people, is that we don't harmonize our policies. For instance, there's an act that governs or that mandate the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. Yeah. That's the Act 490.
Okay.
That mandate them to regulate the environment and also ensure the policies of government on the environment to be implemented. But however, when you take the act that establishes or mandates EPA to act, then you come to Forestry Commission.
Right.
That also has a right to protect and regulate our forests. You come to Water Commission.
Right.
That also protects our water bodies. You come to the Department of Parks and Gardens. That is mandated to take care of the cities or districts. That's the MMDA's landscaping.
The landscaping, right.
Of the environment.
Right.
So, for instance, I can even use an example why I say there's no harmonizing of policies. In the sense that when you take currently, Forestry Commission want to plant about 10 million trees.
Across the country.
Right.
And
with these trees, they are just giving trees to people. Instead of them to sit down with Department of Parks and Gardens to determine what should be planted as a forestry, what should be planted in our urban areas, what should be planted along the roads, and what should be planted in the median. For instance, if you give me a mahogany or odum to plant in my house in Medina, where I have a little space, when I put odum or wawa there, in future I'm going to destroy my building because it has huge trunk and protruding roots that can destroy the environment. So you need technical people from the Department of Parks and Gardens. Okay, for this one, you don't need to plant it in the household. For this one, you don't plant it in the median of the road because it may crack the road or the asphalt that has been done. So we look at plants that can actually be planted in the median. Not every tree that can be planted in the median of a road. We have specific plants that can be planted.
Right.
Then you come to forest establishment. Let's say you go to your community, you want to give them trees. You look at things that can serve as agroforestry trees.
Okay.
Trees that can serve certain purposes. Maybe, for instance, trees that can attract bees. So whilst they're having the forest,
Right.
the bees can also come
To
pollinate the
right.
trees and also provide you the honey you need to eat as food. You can also use it for economic benefits and medicinal purposes.
Sure.
So we are looking at harmonizing policies. That's the challenge. And the other challenge is the human behavior. For instance, somebody go and see a tree which is over a decade or even a century. The person doesn't even know how it was planted, how it grew up. The person start cutting without even having the conscience that this tree I'm cutting down, what is the effect?
Right.
Today we're all complaining about heat in Accra. It's not anything about climate change that has just dropped from the space like a stone. No, it is caused by human activities. For instance, if I'm expanding a place like Oyarefa.
Okay.
Oyarefa used to be an area where there are a lot of trees and vegetation.
Yeah.
So if you are cutting down those vegetation and building, make sure you just replace them. So you don't cut down trees, you don't destroy vegetation and come back again to complain about certain environmental impacts.
But talking about cutting and replacing, I mean, I'm an individual who just buys my land and I build. One would say, what's my business in planting and replacing the trees?
So again, we come back to the harmonization of policies.
Policies, right.
So for instance, I know Barry has bought a land, maybe somewhere around Medina.
Right.
The district assembly has a physical department unit. And this physical department unit consists of town and country planning and Department of Parks and Gardens.
Right.
So before Barry can be given a permit to build his house, Barry must bring a proposal, that's a plan,
right,
or an architectural design of how his building will look like. So in that building, there are certain parameters Barry must meet before he's given the permit to start the project. So when you build your house, so in the Department of Parks and Gardens or the fiscal department, which consists of town and country planning, parks and gardens, will not tell you that when you build the house, these are the things you need to put there. So if Barry is building, it doesn't mean that Barry should just be allowed to do whatever he wants to do. In certain jurisdictions, for instance, in Burkina Faso, where government own lands, individual doesn't own lands. Before
in Burkina Faso, the governments own the land.
Own the lands. So before you even start your development, there must be a road, there must be water, certain services, and there is certain vegetations must be protected.
Right.
So you can't just go clear everything and say, because I bought the land, I just want to do whatever I want to do.
So there are laws that actually guide people to do these things.
There are laws.
So I believe they're not being enforced.
Yeah, and even
that's the case.
I can even give you a long list of some of the laws that govern our environment. For apart from the Act 490, which mandates EPA to regulate the law.
Yeah.
We have another one. I'll just highlight some few of them.
Right.
We have here the Hazardous and Electronic Waste Management Act, Act 2016, Act 917. That governs how to even dispose your waste into the environment. Right. There's a way you are supposed to do it. You don't just dispose your waste just like that. There's an act regulating it. And there's another act I want us to look at. We have the importation, we still continue with the act.
Okay.
The Hazardous Electronic Waste Management Act.
Right.
Which prohibits the importation, exportation, and transportation, selling, and purchasing of or dealing in or disposing of hazardous waste. But go to Agogloshi. You see what is happening there. We just dump e-waste anyhow. We burn the e-waste there. They don't even know how it should be disposed as well. But there's an act that's prohibited.
So there's a joint problem both ways.
Both ways.
People are not conscious. The regulators are also not up to speed and not working the way they're supposed to
do. And also, I also say there are certain issues that has been a stumbling block. Maybe political interference, the way our systems are run.
Right.
Maybe probably my brother is a minister somewhere. My brother is, or my family member is a president or vice president.
Yeah.
So the moment the regulator comes in, somebody somewhere will make a call. So these are some of the challenges we need to face. So that's where the human issues comes in.
Right.
So both the destruction aspect and interference with the act, that's the policies that will act as laws for people not to do some of these things. So there are a lot of them. And interestingly, Ghana has been a signatory to most of the international conventions. So let's take the Kyoto one. We have one here that talks about
quite a long list you have, I believe.
a long list.
Yeah.
So we take the some of the treaties and conventions are what we have as the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety.
Okay.
And then we also have the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants. And then Kyoto Protocol on the United Nations Conventions on Climate Change. And then recently the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. So Ghana has always been a signatory to some of these international conventions that regulate the environment.
Right.
But the question is, how do you harmonize all this in the local context? Growing up as a young man in Tamale,
right,
I've been telling people we need to go back and reflect and say, okay, are we supposed to readopt our cultural systems into our policy making? In Tamale, every area had what we call the Boani, a particular conserved area.
Okay.
So they attach some kind of fear in you that for here
you don't go there.
You don't go there.
It's like a sacred place.
Place, but it's just a matter of protecting the environment. Simple as ABC. There was nothing superstitious about it.
You need to instill fear into the people.
So traditionally,
that's how stubborn we can be. Huh?
Yes. So traditionally, this is how they protected some of the areas in certain places.
Back in the days.
Right. And we can go back to those systems.
You think we'll still believe it if we know that it was a prank?
Again, this is where the human behavior also comes in.
Right.
Because you now claim we are Christians, we are Muslims. When we are using traditional systems to control things that will even help ourselves, we see as evil, we see as superstition.
Yeah.
For example, if I tell Barry, this portion of Medina, you're not supposed to step there because your great-grandparents, your ancestors are lying there. If you have that tradition in that culture in you, again, it means that we are losing certain values, certain cultural values we must go back to.
Right.
Because somebody in Germany or UK cannot come and tell somebody in Ghana what to do to protect your environment.
Exactly.
You are in that context. So you have to use the local knowledge or what we call indigenous knowledge to be able to come up with policies that will help you to regulate the environment.
Clearly,
so
this is the conversation is longer, I believe, but clearly, as you stated, it's a both-way problem from the individuals as well as the government as well. But even with that, I mean, we have the Ramsar sites where people even build. This is a site that's internationally you're not even supposed to touch. But people do that.
Sure.
So how do you think you can prevent people by going back to the old ways and saying this place you're not supposed to go there?
Okay. So this is where we need to engage most stakeholders.
Right.
For instance, we must look at community engagements. We must involve our chiefs, our elders, our traditional leaders in some of these policy formulations and implementation. And one thing I've also observed, Ghana, we are good at formulating policies. For that one,
I mean, everybody will talk about it.
Yes,
good
but
policies is a problem,
and the enforcement is one of the challenges. So this is where we need to engage people, so that people understand that it's not just about the money you put in your pocket. For instance, if I want to build a filling station in the middle of a community, so if I don't engage the community to understand that it's not about what the man building a filling station is going to give to you, but what the implications of what he's going to do.
Right.
Maybe the person building the filling station has access to money. The person can get some few people, drop them some envelopes, and everything is forgotten.
Right.
But we should have people who have conscience, who understand the implications of what is happening.
Right.
So it is okay for this, you don't need to put it here. Let's find a different place to put it. So this is where we need to engage people, stakeholders, to be able to come up with this.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to issues of industrialization. We are a developing country gradually, and we are looking to get to the stage where we are fully industrialized, in as much as we are still on the road. But let's go back to the U.S., where President Biden is say he's committed to cutting 50% emission by 2030. Of course, U.S. industry, you can name them. China, there's this article I read that says if you're living in China, It's like it's like smoking 40 cigarettes a day. The atmosphere is smoggy, filled with air, and that explains the nature. I mean, the number of industries is a sight that everywhere you go, industries, everything assembled in China and what have you. How do we industrialize without? Because clearly they are industrialized nations and they are polluting the environment. So is it possible to industrialize without polluting the environment?
Okay. Yeah, it's highly possible to do that. Let's take Germany.
In a developing country.
In a developing country, it's very.
I just
it's
gave
very
you China's
easy to do.
example.
Sure.
Right.
For instance, when you take Germany, Germany was not just industrialized today. It started long time ago.
Right.
But when you go to Germany, you can see their environment. Or let's take Europe in general.
Okay.
They are industrialized, but they've not polluted the environment. You go to certain areas, they are protected. Clearly spelled out as to what to do here, what not to do there. If you want to do industrialization and still protect the environment, it's just a matter of enforcing the laws, a matter of harmonizing our policies, where we say, okay, if you want to industrialize pram or tema, every industry must make sure that trees are planted around the industries, so that when these fumes or these pollutants are coming out,
They can absorb
the
it.
plants can absorb it. And interestingly, the plants absorb these emissions, these carbon emissions, these pollutants, absorb them to that and give them back oxygen to breathe. So it's a simple thing. You establish an industry around the Pram enclave.
Build trees.
Build trees. So there's this concept that has come up. It has been around for a decade now.
Right.
But people are yet to adopt it, especially our architects.
Okay.
What we call biophilic designs. Biophilic design means that designing with a feel of nature in the design.
Okay.
So I can have maybe huge structures,
Okay.
but I'll still have plant components
In there.
in there. So I can come into this studio. There are plants that can even live indoors. So I can place plants in this studio. So whilst the environment is not clean, these plants can absorb, because we use a lot of chemicals indoor. Maybe you use chemicals to clean the toy and other stuff.
Yeah.
You use a lot of air fresheners.
Now the sanitizer is everywhere.
Everywhere. So with these
Disinfectants and
plants,
all,
these
yeah.
plants are very good at absorbing these chemicals
Right.
in the atmosphere.
Right.
So instead of leaving them that way, we can design with the biophilic designs,
Right.
imbibe plants in them, so that all the day you are industrializing them, but you still have the environment being protected,
Right.
both indoor and outdoor.
And outdoor.
So there are a lot of things we can do. So we can also come up with policies and laws and say, okay, if you want to build a factory,
Okay.
make sure that maybe a 10-meter square or 100-meter square area should be left for greenery.
Right.
We can also say that along the industrial enclave, trees should be planted around, so that even if there are homes around, because of these trees,
They will protect it.
it will protect it.
Right.
So these are some of the things we can
So
do.
yeah, we can definitely industrialize without polluting the environment. Now you are an climate change advocate. What are some of the advocacy, or what are some of the campaigns you have campaigned for? You know, to help preserve this life that we have around. I mean, this is the only earth we have, but we have
Sure.
another one.
There's no plan B. You know.
Thank you.
There's no planet B,
Right.
yeah.
What are some of the campaigns you have embarked
I've
upon?
been involved in this campaign for a decade plus now.
Right.
So some of the things I do are I write a lot. I do a lot of articles. So you can even look at some of my articles that says change the behavior, not the climate. There's
Right.
another article you can also look for, the Ebru Botanic Gardens, the green gold mine.
Right.
We don't see the gold mine in greenery.
In greenery.
For instance, today, I bet you a lot of youth in Accra are making millions of Ghana cedi out of green projects. Just walk to East Legon, walk to Flower Pot, and see the number of youth line up with nurseries, selling plants. Just go
Yeah,
interview them
I think I have
and know
noticed
how
that.
much they make in a day, in a week, in a month, and in a year. It has created a lot of job opportunities.
So
for the
people patronize these.
Yes, they patronize this plant. Some plants can cost as much as 5,000 Ghana cedi, 3,000, 1,000, just a plant.
Well, but maybe
so imagine.
not every Ghanaian would be able to patronize
Sure,
that.
but there are people ready to purchase that. People are ready.
Right.
So it's a matter of creating opportunities for people,
Right.
as well as protecting the environment.
So okay, you made mention of the youth. How involved are the youth, in this particular course? Because selling the plants may be for monetary purposes, number one, okay? Selling the plants to also further encourage people to get more plants in their house to clean the environment is another.
Sure.
How is it? Are they really involved, or it's just let's just make money and then we're good to go?
Yeah, these guys are really involved. Because one strategy about making money or profit out of greenery
Right.
is that you multiply. You look at sustainability. Nobody wants to do business just for a day. Somebody
Okay.
wants to do business and keep doing well in business.
Multiplying. All
So
right.
the more they multiply, the more we have access to protecting the environment with these plants. Another area I've also looked at, I've been working on, is what I call creating green ambassadors.
Okay.
So every year, I make sure that I celebrate World Environment Day with school kids. So what I do is I find plants and trees, get together some schools. So I usually identify a school
Okay.
in a particular area.
Right.
So we can say this year we are planting 100 trees in this school. So I engage these minds prior to World Environment Day, which normally happens every June 5th.
Yeah.
So what we do is that we engage these young ones,
Okay.
tell them the importance of plants in the environment
Right.
and what they can also benefit from it. Before the day we go out there to plant trees
Okay.
to commemorate the day. So this year, the Department of Parks and Gardens is going to celebrate this World Environment Day with planting of 1 million trees across the country.
Right.
So these are some of the initiatives that we are doing
Okay.
to actually curtail this.
Well,
So,
before I get to my last question, the Greater Accra Regional Minister is actually embarking upon the Make Accra Work campaign, and we've seen some plantings going. I hope you guys are aware, so that they don't plant the mahoganies and start breaking our roads. But I have my colleague Hafiz Gunu in the studio with us, another day one buddy of mine, and I believe he has tons of questions for you. Hafiz.
Not a ton. But
No, I know you are that person, so you definitely have just fire.
not a ton. So, Mr. Edem, just want to say thank you very much for your time. It's been an
for
amazing
inviting
time.
me.
Yes. Well, two things certain in life: death and taxes. Now, speaking of taxes, I want to understand what do you make of the idea of introducing carbon emission tax, so that to dissuade or to discourage people from the use of conventional energy to
Right.
lean towards more renewable energy to save the environment.
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. Taxation is not always a solution to some of these things.
Okay.
What I've realized most countries have done is, but when you go to Scandinavian, with this issue of sanitation, what they do is that they actually even pay you for protecting the environment.
Wow.
It's an incentive. So, for instance, when you go to a place like Norway, they have a system where if you're able to segregate your waste, that's plastic waste,
Yeah, separate them and all of that.
and then send this plastic waste to the place you're supposed to send it, they give you a shopping ticket where you can go and use for shopping. So people are encouraged to actually
To do the right thing.
do the right thing. So, for instance, if you want to introduce taxations for carbon emissions, it will be a challenge because we don't have systems and structures to actually capture everybody who does this. So even look at even our taxation system. The people in the tax net are few.
Right.
So most of the informal sector are not actually paying taxes.
Okay.
So if you introduce taxes for carbon emissions, it will be challenging in our part of the world. But in some jurisdictions, it will work perfectly. So what we can do is that we could look at systems that can actually encourage people to rather plant trees and capture carbon instead of paying taxes for carbon emissions.
Right.
So these are some of the things.
Even with a system of capturing enough people, I think with the national identification, card
and the Ghana
initiative,
card,
it
yeah.
is actually bringing that conscientization to the less number of people who are paying tax. Hence, capturing more Ghanaians who would,
Into the tax net,
be
yeah.
into. But even here, I mean, there is something I think we shy away from. I don't think when you charge me for emitting.
But there's something I realized from just the last point you
Okay.
made about incentivizing people to actually do these things. Because
Yeah.
it's almost like there's our system is more about punishing people to do things.
It's punitive,
Or
yeah.
yes, it's more like compelling people. to do
Compelling.
things.
Yeah.
Why
yeah.
don't you for once change strategy? Make him want to do it and actually feel good about doing it.
The thing is, so like he said, we have brilliant, amazing laws and policies around this. So, but then it's not working because look, I know a number of houses in my area that have applied for a bin
Okay,
since last year.
sure.
Yeah, since last year they've
And
not
there been
received.
some
And just to follow
That's
up,
a
yeah.
now speaking of these, the emissions and all these things. Now, if you go to a place like China, a place like a city like Beijing has about 6 million cars on the road. And so, because of the smoke he mentioned in 2011, thereabout, they brought in certain systems where, like a car lottery in certain cities like Shanghai and everything, where priority is given to electric vehicles.
Because
Yes, and you have those that use fossil fuel. There's some sort of a cap for a year. Beyond that, this number of
threshold.
cars will not be registered. So, is it a system we can introduce? Seeing that in Accra, for instance, I mean, Mondays we see the traffic, we see the number of cars. Is this something we can introduce, or there are certain limitations that would not help us implement such a policy over here? Seeing that China, well, a communist state and everything.
Yeah, sure. Some of these things, even though China is a communist state, it does not stop a democratic state to actually adopt some of these strategies. Again, we are coming back to policy implementation and enforcement of laws. Yes, we can say every year Ghana is limited to importation of maybe 20,000 cars. But the question is, how are we going to enforce that for that 20,000 cars to be limited to enter into our harbors? For instance, there are even cars from Togo that get to Ghana and they don't pass through the harbor. Where did they pass through? So these are some of the things we should be looking at. Enforcement of laws. When we say we want this, we should make sure that we follow it through. So I can say maybe we are putting a cut on the number of cars that comes into the country.
Right.
But are all the stakeholders ready to actually enforce that policy or that law to work? So these are some of the things we can do. So we don't need to be a communist state to be able to do what China is doing. We can all agree as Ghanaians and say, even look at our Galamsey issue.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody we are behaving like ostriches because everybody knows who are the ones doing Galamsey.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. It's not like a policeman in Medina can tell you a criminal hotspot. But the question is he ready to go and apprehend them? So these are some of the things we should start looking at. Should we stop behaving like ostriches and tackle the issues as it is?
Okay.
Yeah.
But before we get to our final engagements, let's talk about this issue of galamsey. That's illegal mining, as it is termed in our base Ghana. Is it possible to revert the harm and the damage that has been done to the water bodies? Is it possible? Because you look at some water body. Look, for me, I think if the sun should shine on that for 24 hours continuously, it will dry and become an arid. I mean, a land. Yeah, you get my point. Is it possible to transform it back to the way it is?
It's highly possible. Highly possible.
Right.
How do we do it? For instance, we must come up with systems that say that we are reclaiming all destroyed forest lands that are used for galamsey. And I bet we don't need much money to do that. We can say, Forestry Commission, Department of Parks and Gardens, and all people dealing with plants.
Okay.
Government can say every year we need to produce this number of trees to replace in these areas. And it's just a matter of engaging these community guys and say, we are not stopping you from doing your mining. We are not stopping you from doing your galamsey if it is legal or illegal. Just make sure that wherever you've destroyed, go back there and plant trees. Go back there and reclaim those lands. So it's just a matter of we agreeing that this number, we can give ourselves, like for instance, some countries like the SDGs, we've given ourselves timelines to 2030 to achieve the sustainable development goals. We can also come as a country and say, we want to use 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to reclaim all lost water bodies. And we can do it. With the right commitment, the right people, the right expertise, we can do it. It's highly possible.
Because clearly, it's actually causing harm in terms of the water supply.
And even if you don't take care, in the next 3-5 years, water will be the most expensive commodity in Ghana. If you don't take care with this galamsey thing. You see, until we see as an emergency, it will be very difficult to tackle. For now, some people don't see as an emergency because most people don't travel. Just try and travel to these areas that they do this galamsey. the western region, western north.
Yeah.
But you will cry. Just try and visit our Cobra River,
Yeah.
Pra, and see what is happening to our rivers. You cry. There's a lot happening out there. People are just in Accra, they don't know what is happening. Just travel to these areas. You will cry for Mother Ghana.
And like you said, these can be reverted. These can be reversed and then brought back to the way their natural states
Sure.
by planting and enforcing. I think one of the central key things you've mentioned is about enforcing the policies and the right structures should work and all of that. But how far are you willing to go as an advocate? Because this is you would be, one would say that the future generation would hold you responsible because you are the people in the center, at the forefront. So definitely your voice has to be. I mean, you've been in the Kufuor Foundation thing. I don't know if your issues of environment thing has come up there. And how far do you plan to go in terms of protecting the environment?
For me, I've made as a personal resolve to contribute my skills, my expertise, my energy.
Right.
Till I die or till I leave this earth. So one of the things I'm looking at. So you remember I was hammering on harmonization of policies. So these are some of the areas I'm looking at for the next 3-5 years.
Right.
I want to actually see how I can influence policy.
Okay.
And before you can influence policy, you must make sure you have the right tools, the right skills, and the network to be able to do that. So for now, some of the strategies I'm using is the awareness creation, the tree planting, the collaboration, the partnerships. So I'm looking at, you see, this fight is not an individual fight.
Exactly.
It's a collective thing.
one.
So you need, you don't also have to go the problem way. You must always go the solution mindset.
Solution-centered way, right.
So because we've gotten to a point where complaining is no more a strategy. You can complain, but
no one would listen. Yeah.
no one listens. It's not a strategy.
Yeah.
So the only strategy is that whilst you've identified the problems,
Find a solution.
find the solutions,
Right.
and move with it.
Right.
So one of the areas I'm looking at is harmonizing our policies,
Okay.
creating partnership, having effective collaborations from various sectors.
Right.
So with this, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get it. So these are some of the strategies I'm looking at.
Okay.
Actually looking at how to actually engage people, network and get the right people who take the decisions on the table. To able to say, okay, at this point, let's do this.
Let's do that.
So for now, these are my
Okay.
plans.
Well. Good luck on that journey. Have you have any final touches for Mr. Doe right here? Okay. Thank you very much, Hafiz. And recently I saw a picture of you. I don't know which water body was that, waterfall was that. You and some guys. You were doing. Was it planting?
Yeah, we're planting. It's a waterfall in the eastern region,
Okay.
known as the Asamina waterfalls
Okay.
in Okere.
Right.
Okere is on the Kwapim Hills
Okay.
when you are descending. So this waterfall is not known to most people. So the district assembly, that's the Okere district assembly,
Okay.
in conjunction with the MP, who is also the Minister of Local Government, Honorable Dambochi.
Yeah.
So they want to plant trees around this waterfall,
Okay.
protect it, and also get investors to get people to this one. It's a beautiful waterfall.
Wow.
Out there. Most people don't know about it. All we know is Boti waterfall.
Yeah, and Kintampo. Yeah. But it's I think I thought it was Kintampo and the Boti and what have you just mentioned.
Very
Wow.
nice waterfall.
Well, that's a spoiler alert that Edem has just brought out. So maybe you might want to go check that place out because there are a lot of beautiful places.
And it's just 1 hour drive from Accra.
1 hour drive.
Yeah,
So
from
just
Accra.
take your time and just go enjoy some cool, nice, natural breeze. Thank you, Edem, an environmental climate change activist. And of course, he's also the Assistant Horticulture Officer, Department of Parks and Gardens, Office of the President. And he has brainstormed with us right here today. And like he said, it's all about the policy, the enforcing, and then collective efforts. And we shall definitely get there. And I'm happy he mentioned that the destroyed, damaged water bodies can be reversed and then get back to the natural state. If not, water is going to be an issue because I read a book sometime. This is one of the things that can actually bring about the next world war is water. That's how important it is. So thank you very much.